I facilitated a rest workshop last month and I was expecting maybe 20 women to show up, but 50 women showed up. And that told me something. Women say they want rest, but I don't think that's the full story. I think women are hungrier for rest than they realize, but rest content just not does not get the clicks. I posted about rest and it does not get the clicks. So last month, I facilitated a rest workshop for a women's ministry. It was a virtual rest workshop for a women's ministry. And the workshop was going to be teaching the workshop was about teaching women the 7 types of rest, what they mean, how to determine which type of rest you need most, how to self-assess, and then I went into how they can try certain types of practices based on the type of rest that they would need. If you've watched my other videos, I do a separate workshop where I specifically focus on creative rest because so many ambitious, driven, goal-oriented women just don't know how creatively exhausted they are. And I want to bring home the message of creative rest. But this was a general rest workshop and I was facilitating it for a women's ministry. So I didn't know what the count was going to be. It was a virtual workshop. I was going to show up. I was going to facilitate the workshop and teach. Again, I'm thinking that maybe 20 women would show up, but I'm going to say over 50 women because after the workshop, when I spoke with the leader of the women's ministry, she shared with me that in some spaces, it was more than one woman in the home. So they were, of course, on one computer, but over 50 women showed up to this space and it literally blew my mind. And the thing was, while I was facilitating the workshop, they were so engaged. You can tell like their hunger and their desire to learn about rest and to be able to find ways to practice rest. It was palpable. You could tell that probably many of these women were exhausted, carrying a lot, leading in maybe their jobs, their careers in their church communities. And they were tapped in. They were very locked in. At the end, I had planned for a 30-minute Q&A session, but that even went longer because again, they were very, very engaged in the conversation and the material that I was presenting. And after that workshop, I just felt so grateful to be able to, first of all, facilitate a workshop like this in a faith-based community and how engaged they were. I was just so thankful that I could just be the seed planter for the conversation around rest, especially just generally and in a faith-based setting. And during the workshop, since this one was specifically catered to a faith-based community, I did talk about how rest is mentioned in the Bible and how God practiced rest and how rest is a divine action that God invites us to. And it was just such a beautiful, beautiful workshop. And it was so good. I have my notes here so I don't miss anything. After each workshop, I send out, a little survey just to help me out, gather their feedback so I can see what people may want more of, what they want less of, and just for me to be able to, continue to elevate the experience for the workshop. And one of the comments was like, girl, you are cooking and we were eating. And that just like really made me feel good. And it just brought the message back around for me that women are so hungry for rest, but rest content doesn't get clicks, it doesn't get views. And women often, I feel like, intellectually agree or understand that they need rest and they want rest, but there's tension and there's barriers around them truly giving themselves permission and truly embodying what a restful woman would look like. They want to rest, but there's fear, there's hesitation, there's a plethora of reasons why they don't move forward in taking the rest. So after the workshop, and as I do this work around rest, it always just comes back to me of if women say, if women are saying and feeling that they're hungry for rest, they need rest, they want rest, then why aren't they choosing it? Why aren't they choosing to step forward, to learn about rest, to learn what type of rest they need, to figure out how they can start taking small intentional steps toward being rested? And these are the things that I am finding as I facilitate these types of workshops and have more conversations with women individually about rest. There is hesitation because rest can feel unproductive and it can feel selfish. So women are saying, and I get all of the reasons, because when you have such an identity of a go-getter, of a fixer, of a doer, of a executor, of ambition, and you want to rest, you feel like, well, if I'm resting, then things won't get done. Now, this is a thought. Now, let me tell you too, these are all limiting beliefs because none of these things are true. But I'm just sharing with you where some of this tension lies. And if you can resonate, let me know down in the comments. But if I'm not doing this, then it won't get done. So then I'm selfish. Or if I'm not executing on X, Y, and Z, then it's unproductive. There's also some feeling around rest being unsafe, risky, and just flat out unattainable. And listen, I get it, and I have deep compassion for women who feel like rest is just unsafe or it's risky. And I get it, because when you are so attached to an identity that doesn't allow for rest, when you are so rooted in what you do is tied to your value, then of course that doesn't let room in for rest. That doesn't let room in for choosing yourself. It feels unattainable because there's all of these beliefs. I call them like the blind spots of ambition, the lies that ambition has told us, the lies the world has told us about choosing ourselves, about resting our bodies. The best thing I could have ever done for myself was choose rest, because everything else elevated. If you're new here, go back and watch my video that I posted a few days ago on how choosing rest elevated my entire life. And again, it's not about turning your whole life upside down in one day. It's about, number one, the awareness around you desiring, wanting, needing rest, which you know you do, but it's then taking that awareness just a small step forward. Okay. Many people say they don't have time. Take some of that time from that scrolling you do. I'm just kidding, but not kidding. You have to start in small steps. I have women start out in 15-minute increments, choosing a rest practice for 15 minutes. And sometimes it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. Sometimes it's going to feel like it's not working. Sometimes it may not work. And that's where that uncomfortable, sticky space, like around trying something new and figuring out what works for you. And it may take a few times. It might take a little bit of trial and error, but it's about taking small 15-minute blocks and then finding rest practices that suit you, and then being able to build on that. I phrase them as appetizers, entrees, and desserts. Like an appetizer is that 15-minute practice. An entree would be 30 to 60 minutes. And then a dessert is something above 60 minutes. And I have here in my notes, like, rest isn't hard because you don't want it, because we don't want it. It's hard because it's resting is disrupting the identity or the belief that we have in ourselves, the belief that the world has in us. When you're resting, it disrupts that. So it makes it hard. And we can do hard things. We can choose ourselves. We can choose rest. And the energy in the room was in this virtual space. Again, I am on the computer, but the energy in this virtual space was palpable. All these women were so tapped in. They were so present. They definitely felt a shift in the room. And again, when I sent out the feedback survey, many of them said that they felt a shift from that workshop and how they would want to move forward. And I feel like one of the shifts were, since this was a faith-based community, there were two shifts. One, that God is not asking us out here to exhaust ourselves and to run ourselves ragged. He wants us to rest. He rested. We can give ourselves permission to rest. The other shift that I felt that was in the room, that the women felt like they weren't alone. They're not by themselves. Over 50 women in this virtual space. Like, clearly your sisters around you have the same feeling around rest. And that's powerful. That's really, really powerful. You see, I got on my mug, embracing ease, because that's what I'm always do. And ease doesn't mean that life is easy. For me, my definition of ease is just moving in a way of where I'm in flow and not force. And my mind, my body, my capacity is regulated. Like, I'm not chasing my goals, my vision, my desires at the cost of myself. The nuance here, or the deeper reflection when I'm talking about rest, and in this workshop, outside of this workshop, while I'm just having conversations with women, is rest is desired, but the reason that it's hard for many of you is because rest also requires boundaries, and that's hard. It requires saying no, and that's hard. It requires separating yourself from identities that tie your value and your worth to output, productivity, and execution. It requires slowing down, and it requires self-trust. And if you've never had any of those things, it can be extremely difficult. And that's the nuance. You want rest, but rest also requires you to do these hard things. And they're possible. They're definitely possible, but it takes awareness and intentionality and moving forward one small step at a time. And I told the women as we got done with the questions and answers, that, listen, one workshop isn't going to change your life overnight. It's not. Rest is something that requires you to come back to over and over and choose over and over and over and over again. But what one workshop can do is give you language, because language matters. Understanding that there's multiple types of rest, understanding how you can ask yourself certain questions to identify what type of rest you may need, and then how you can integrate small practices to help you with that rest so you can get some relief in your life. I want it to be the seed planter. When I'm facilitating these workshops, I want to be the seed planter, to be able to plant the seed with the language, with being the possibility model that rest is achievable in your everyday life, and allow that seed to be planted and ultimately grow and get root and then bear fruit for these women. That is what my goal is with these workshops and how I talk about rest. It's just like anything else. It's like when you go to the gym, I know, women often go through seasons where they want to either lose weight, gain weight, or be healthier, like with food, diet, those types of things. And none of that stuff happens overnight. You don't go to the gym the first day, the first week, and lose weight or gain muscle. You have to take those small, integral, everyday steps to then build upon your goal of losing weight, gaining weight, or just being more nutritionally healthy. The same applies with rest practices, and having an accountability partner, getting yourself a coach or mentor, a practitioner, a leader, to help you stay accountable. I do offer those services in very limited capacities, but sometimes, just like a personal trainer, a dietitian, a nutritionist, checking in with that person and helping you stay accountable until you have, the 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 foundation and the strength to be able to move along with that. And even when you have built up the muscle for rest, you can still have those people that you check in with, because there's always times in our lives, seasons in our lives where things might get hectic, might get a little bit busier, and you need someone to lean on. So having those 50 women in a room all at once, and the leader of the women's ministry saying that was the most women they had ever had come in for these types of, because they have something every month in this church, and I was the presenter, the facilitator for last month, that it was the biggest turnout that they had ever had. It really showed me that women are really, really out here for rest, craving rest, hungry for rest, and you might be too. And the question is whether you're going to trust yourself enough to answer the question, to say yes to the question, to say yes to yourself. You need rest, you desire rest. Are you going to give yourself permission to take it? Let me know down in the comments if you feel like you're in a season where you need more rest and you just may not know where to start. Also, if you feel like you're that woman who is in a season of career misalignment, exhaustion, you're wanting to rework your relationship with ambition, capacity, rest, or creativity, I have some resources down in the description box that might be able to help you. I'm sure they'll be able to help you, so check those out down there. And like this video, let me know if any part of the video resonated with you. I'm Erica Prevail, and I help ambitious women rework their relationship with rest capacity, ambition, and creativity. And I share these conversations like this every single day. I'm so glad you're here, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.